Hello and welcome to Kitchen After Dark. I am your host, Quentin Hazel Jr. And tonight, we're having people over. I've decided to make pork chops with pickled onions, oven roasted potatoes, and broccolini sauteed. It's gonna be delicious. So let's get it started. Can't forget about dessert. We're making cookies. This is what we're doing. The Kitchen After Dark famous ruby chocolate chip cookies. We got our tres, which is triple chocolate, 3 spice queens, and we got our vegan option, which is coconut and cranberry. I think they're gonna love it. So this week I went down a rabbit hole of like internet searches, and I like landed on toxic masculinity, but I wasn't like it. I saw a bunch of people on TikTok, and there's the guys that say all the crazy things, but I actually wanted to look for non-toxic masculinity. Like, what is it? Are we evolving past the point of this, me man, you woman, get in kitchen, cook. Are we getting past that?
I really hope so.
I mean, I want to know what it is. I mean, Luke, I know you have 2 girls. Do you think we're evolving past the toxic masculinity that's out there?
I think if you got kids, your only hope is to try and evolve a bit more, whatever that is. So whatever your starting point is, it could be a hyper-masculine, violent, angry growing up. That's a bit shit. Mm-hmm. And you hope to try and move forward a bit more. So I grew up in a place where there was traditional gender roles, sure, but it was pretty balanced. That wasn't too angry. As I move forward, I hope to be the next step better, a little bit more aware, a little bit more sort of neutral in terms of gender roles around the home. And now I've got girls as well. You especially want to try and push forward with those sort of ideas of, this is not how men act. This is not how men behave. We're just people who can help and assist, and you do stuff together as a unit. So that's what we're trying. But
I like that.
Reggie, you got two girls as well. I want to.
I mean, and that actually changes you, because it's not only what you're teaching, but you actually have to know that they're learning more from watching. So you're hyper aware of your own habits and things that you've picked up and have lived with for a while, but now you're kind of thinking, okay, this is programming what masculinity is supposed to look like in their relationship. So you're trying to be balanced, even as simple as like what's on the radio. You don't hear misogyny the same way until you have 2 female
sitting in the back seat.
It's in the back seat. So it's just even that has kind of changed.
Well, let me ask this question: who were your male influences growing up? And Rhea, I want to ask you it first. Like,
Obviously I feel like a lot of people start with their dad. That's like the first man of the house. And he was such an interesting character. Like, obviously, like, he was a tradie, and like that externally gave off that masculine energy, right? Always covered in dirt, always worked really long hours. But he would come in and, sit in very similar style to this. He was, before my mum, he was the first person to speak to me about my period, about, dating, what it looks like, how I'm feeling. I had seen my mum cry, but I think there's a different energy which is a part of that masculinity. Not so much a taboo moment, but it definitely was. To see a man cry was eye-opening.
my kids are always asking to see me cry. Like, why don't you cry? But it's not that I don't cry, just none of the stuff you do makes that sound.
They're making requests.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, that balance between externally, tradesman, worked his hands, big broken scaly hands, always came through, and then would sit there and cry with me and talk me through about how he was feeling and what he was going through.
But was that the same for your friends as well, growing up? Because you grew up in the...
Yeah, country. Yeah. Definitely not. We had like the distant dads, the people that would work the hours so they didn't have to be present.
Yeah.
They did, and I don't know if that was a thing because they weren't ready to show up or they didn't know what they were going to be bringing when they showed up. So
I still see that with people, with friends that still do that.
Absolutely.
That like just come home and be like, I'm going to the shed, or
work longer than they really should. I mean, I'm constantly talking to friends like, you're not getting paid to do that shit.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
home.
What's
He's
the
like,
interest?
yeah.
So one of the things that I found difficult was when I was looking at this, toxicity was attached to masculinity, whereas masculinity is like it's just who we are. We are men. We are toxicity shouldn't be attached to it. There are bad people out there, and for a long time the patriarchy was very much in charge, and even still now. But the toxicity shouldn't be attached to masculinity, right?
Like a little bit of something is okay. If you have too much of it, it's toxic. So there's behaviors that are inherently
Aggression.
just not being emotional, not talking about what needs to be done, avoiding things like going to the doctor, little things like that, or defined as like
Not asking for directions. I will never ask for directions in my entire.
all those things they're kind of non
Google Maps solved that.
until they become an event. And if you get to a point where it becomes destructive to yourself or someone else, that's when it becomes toxic. So it's these behaviors which they're there, and you can call upon them if the need arises. If there's a point in time where it's a bear chasing your kid, you got to sort of stand up and
Like,
that's
be bigger.
right.
Yeah.
Sure. Anyone would. It's one of those things where those behaviors are inherently in us.
Yeah.
But when you use them, that's when it becomes toxic, I think, and how you use them as well. So
Reggie, did you grow up with toxic masculinity around you?
No. So I think I grew up pretty aware. There was enough examples around me where I could kind of see where how being overly aggressive, I could see examples that may not have been healthy, but just because of the influence of my mom and my dad, it was a very balanced approach. And I think probably one of the things that informed me the most was maybe going to an all-male college and being able to see there's 3,000 men that look like me, and you got to see the range of masculinity. And that range, historically black college and university, allowed you to see just the range of masculinity. So you got to see the range of the toxicity. You got to see different and it's at that age everybody's going through and trying to figure out who they are, what they want to be. But you got a chance to see everything and then decide what your slice was versus I think stumbling through it and trying to figure it out through trial and error and seeing what happens if you're too womanizing, too aggressive, too controlling, all those different things that go under that. You got a chance to kind of see from your brothers what that looked like and how that resulted. So I think between like my upbringing and then which was a pretty balanced relationship in terms of the power dynamic, and then just getting a library of different things to kind of observe was helpful.
how you want to end up.
Choose your own adventure. Of masculinity. Ree, have you experienced, like, in the dating world, toxic masculinity, or even the other side? Have you experienced non-toxic masculinity? Have you experienced, like, a man's man that but still is gentle and not violent and
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting people out in the world that you can cross paths with, and I think it's up to you to decide how do you want to handle that scenario.
Yeah.
Do you want to stay and do you want to better and do you want to learn and teach and move forward, or are you looking at that whole mess and be like, no, thank you. But I feel when I think about this particular topic, I feel like we're kind of stepping further and further away from categorizing people as masculine or feminine, which I really quite enjoy. So then if we pull back that particular category, rather than saying that person's got issues with toxic masculinity, it's like that person is toxic.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be around that. Whether that is aggressive, controlling. I've seen women, men, non-binary, everything in between. It's not a category based on what you identify as. It's a category for a human. And I have myself felt like I need to, brush up on if I'm coming across too controlling or too aggressive or whatever it may be. And that's not my masculinity. That's just me being a human and trying to figure out what part of me is toxic.
Yeah, exactly.
Where am I going?
I think that's the point, because I was gonna ask about like toxic femininity as well, like because you know there's this conniving. People can be conniving. You know, you could use tears to convince somebody to do something that they didn't necessarily want to do.
Get that emotional manipulation.
Emotional manipulation is like
Yeah.
you're trying to get people to do something that they don't want to do, whether
Exactly.
through violence or through emotions. That's a toxic trait. And I like how you pointed out, like, no, it doesn't have to be masculine and feminine. I think we need to remove the masculine and feminine to, or even non-binary to it, and just say these people are toxic.
Yeah.
Because to say all men are toxic, just be like, oh man, that's when you get the, you know, the people on the boys on the right that are like, what are you talking about? We need to.
It's not all men.
It's not all men. It's not all men. We need to reclaim our.
And you're like, well, it's
like,
both of you.
calm down. Calm down, brother. Calm down. Freedom of speech, but be quiet. Like, you know.
You shush now.
You shush now. And then just saying, yo, that behavior is toxic. That statement that dude said is toxic. That statement that woman said is toxic. And coming at it from the sense of people, because we want to generalize. We want to like be like, oh man, you know, all men are this. I can't find a date because all men are this way. I can't find a date because all women are this way. But really, it's people.
I mean, even what we're doing here, I mean, it's, you know, breaking down some of those gender norms. I mean, you know, thinking back, you asked me about my childhood, like the men in my family cook. You know, so this is pretty comfortable to me.
Yeah.
So just even having that kind of contradiction where
you wouldn't naturally see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, they cook, they do childcare, they do other things. So even kind of breaking it down piece by piece, those influences are important.
I paint my nails. I cook. But even in that sentence, it's like, but people cook. Like, why can't I be and I bake too, right? So baking is traditionally, or it has been seen as the women's job. You go in the kitchen, they bake the pies.
Men do the meat.
Yeah. They barbecue.
Right.
I'll cook dinner. And it's like, you're going to cook the meat. I'm going to do the side salads. I'm going to fry.
Oh, you just.
I'll cook dinner though.
As if the meat's too heavy, right?
But I also know that I've been toxic in my past. Like I don't want to sit there and say I'm a toxic person. I think I've had toxic behaviors that, you know, I try to apologize for and do my best to not do again and grow from it. Right? Does anybody need a refill? Feels like we're
We can do that.
Yeah. Let's get a refill.